Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Adrienne and I make videos on makeup related content. Eyeshadow palettes are my favorite. I'm also a licensed esthetician and a bridal makeup artist, so occasionally I make videos related to that, but today I'm excited to come to you with the Natasha Denona Mini Biba palette. This palette released today on December 20th to the general public. It was on pre-order on our website over the weekend. And the Mini Biba palette is a $25 palette. I did just pick mine up today at Sephora. This is what the shades look like in this palette. I am wearing the look now. We'll get into how I created that in just a second, but I want to bring this into close focus for you. And now that you've seen what the shades look like in the palette, I'll show you what they look like on my complexion. Now that you've seen what the shades look like on my complexion, let's chat a little bit about this palette. The Mini Biba palette obviously is a small spin-off of the large Biba palette, and the large Biba palette it has a lot of neutral shades in it. It's been a lot of makeup artists' favorites for weddings and things like that. I always tend to think of things being neutral for weddings on my part because that's what I do, but this is a spin-off of that. The shade range is gorgeous. As soon as I saw this one, I knew that I was going to pick it up when I saw it on Friday, that this is what she was releasing. I do think it is different from the Big Biba palette, which is truly a core-to-core neutral palette, where this one looks like it's a lot more warm tone peachy shades, and this one's just actual neutral brown that has a little bit of a burgundy base to it. But this peachy shade here and this burgundy shimmer shade, they do lean a little more on the warm tone side. So I've kind of got some mixed feelings about this being related to the Big Biba palette, but I'm going to show you how I created this look I'm wearing today, and then I'll be back with some final first impressions on this palette. Getting started, I am going to go in with this peachy shade here and put this here in the base transition for a base transition shade. And it looks like the pigmentation is building up really well and pretty quick. Gotta love this effortless blend. I don't think this is one of the cream to powder shades. This seems to be building like a regular powder. I have not had a chance to swatch this yet. I wanted to go ahead and get the look film first before I started to swatch anything, which is a little bit backwards, but hey, I didn't always say I'd do everything in the right order. Now I am going to take this Real Techniques brush and go in with this shade here in the crease. And it's deepening it up slightly, going on fairly easy. Bring it on in towards the inner corner of the eye. And down a little. That's building up pretty fast, and I do like that shade quite a bit. Oh, that's a pretty color. I really like the colors that she chose in this palette. Blending, blending, blending. So far, so good. Now I'm going to go ahead and with the one metallic shade here. I'm not going to wet the brush at first. I'm going to see how this goes on with the dry brush. And it seems to be packing the punch even with the dry brush, which would be great for daytime look. I'm going to go ahead and finish putting this down dry, and then I'm going to dampen the brush just to see if we can get a more foiled metallic look for evening. I don't know, what do you think? That looks pretty nice to me, but I'm going to go ahead and spray a little e.l.f. mist on this brush. Now I'll go back into the palette and pick up some more. I'm going to tap and not rub since I'm putting on a second layer. I don't want it to catch and make any texture on the eye. And I'm looking in my mirror a little closer. It looks pretty good. I don't really see any texture building up with this. That's always a concern for me when I keep applying and applying a shade over and over. And I'm going to take the clean side of this brush, make sure I got the clean side, and go in with this. This is a like satiny shimmer. It's not a foiled metallic, but it's got a little bit of shimmer to it, but it's so slight that I think that even if you wanted to use it as a base transition shade, it would work pretty well. With more mature eyes, sometimes I do like those shades. For textured eyelids, somebody that's got a real textured eyelid, a lot of the times, a lot of the flat mattes don't look as good. It can accentuate and make everything look a little dry and crepey, so sometimes shades like these work pretty well. And I will say that this is building up pretty nicely. And I'm going to take this Real Techniques crease brush and go in with the deepest shade in the palette for the outer V. Ooh, look at that pigmentation. This is really impressive so far. This is great for a 5-minute eyeshadow look. I feel like you could really pop on a 5-minute eyeshadow look with this. I'm going to pack this shade on with this brush. The little patchiness that you see, I feel like it's the actual brush that's sticking. I don't feel like it's the shadow. This is good for packing on concentrated color and going back and forth, but it's not good for blending. So let me grab something to blend with. Try to find a smaller brush here for the blending. Ooh, that's a not small brush. I'm going to go in with this Jessup brush here. This might be a little too big. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that shade and blend, blend, blend to soften that up. Let's see. It's blending out. I got such a concentrated amount on with that Real Techniques brush that I might be blending this one here for a second, but I can't tell if it's really on the shadow or the brush that I started off with. I'm not going to apply any more on this brush. I'm going to go in and try to blend this out and see if it was just because I put so much on all at once. That does seem to be it. If you look at this here, it looks really good. It's blending nicely. So that shade was very pigmented, as you saw when I first put it down. So you may not want to use a super concentrated brush. Sometimes I do like to do that because it gets the look on faster, but this shade does a really good job. So I am going to be blending and blending. You have seen what the blending is like with a little bit versus a lot. I'm going to go ahead and finish blending this side out and even them out off camera. I feel like you got to see a good idea of what they work like, and then I'm going to finish with liner and lashes and lipstick, and I'll be right back. For my first impressions on the Mini Biba palette, and I'm going to go ahead and open it up and hold it up here so you can see the shades as I'm speaking about it. Like I said, I had some mixed feelings about the comparison of this being the mini Biba palette and the large Biba palette. I don't have the large Biba palette yet. I have so many neutral palettes that I've been dragging my feet on it. This little mini palette is one of her $25 palettes. The pan sizes are a lot smaller than her larger palettes, like the Biba palette, which is $125 or $29 palette. So that's quite pricey, and that's why I haven't picked it up. Yes, I can get the use out of it. Yes, I think it probably would be awesome quality, but I just haven't taken that jump yet. So it was nice to be able to have this one in a more affordable size. That being said, I don't really think that this color story lends to the large Biba palette and the neutral shades. I think that this is something like totally unique on its own. It's a beautiful color story, something that I look at, and no matter what the brand is, I would pick this color story up because this looks simple and it's a quick look for me to put together. I don't have to guess because there's so many shades in the palette what I'm going to do. This is curated beautifully, and I'll open it again. I don't know why I even bothered to close it, but I think that Natasha's starting to release things so fast, just with the whole craze of the makeup brands going nuts and the makeup rage going on and on, trying to make as much money as they can, as quickly as they can. So they're just spitting out release after release. And I'm not saying that this isn't a good release, because it is. It's just that I feel like they're starting to reach when they're trying to say, oh, the mini this, the mini that. This doesn't look like a mini Biba palette. This is a standalone palette on its own. I just kind of feel a little bit like, as fast as everything's coming out, like they're just trying to capitalize off of everything, which they are a business, and that's understandable, but realizing just because sometimes something's a favorite brand and you love the brand, and in the past you wanted to pick up everything that a brand was releasing, to kind of slow down and be careful and really scrutinize color stories and wait until some reviews come out and you see multiple reviews on a palette as to if that's something that you really need, because it seems like the brands aren't going to let up, and like they're going back and playing on the emotions of things that were already popular, even though they don't even look like anything remotely related when they do the spin-off palette. So that's my feeling on this palette. It's my first mini palette to have, and I really do like it, and I will be using it again. What do I think of the quality of it? I think that it has a decent quality, and that the look went on pretty well, like it performed really well. What I will say, once I got off of camera and you saw, if you go in with this deep shade too intense in the beginning, that you are going to have to blend and blend. And on both eyes, I did have to blend quite a bit to get that shade to look good. I also had to add a little bit more on this eye to build it up to even the eye where I put so much on in the beginning. I really like the two matte shades in here, the peach and the kind of peachy mid-tone brown. I really like those shades. They went on so well. The pigmentation blended easily. And I do like both of these shades here. Like I said, this one is a metallic. It looks very metallic in the pan. But I do want you to know, if that's one of the features that you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get this wowing metallic shade, you're not even with a wet brush. Once I got this on, this metallic shade is so subtle that it doesn't have that creamy foiled metallic look that I typically go for. It's more of like a powdery shimmer metallic. And not saying that in a bad way, the powdery, because it looks very sophisticated and classy. And the pearl formula in this is so refined that it doesn't show texture on the eyes at all. And where this shade would typically look kind of drier on my eyelid, being that formulation, not being a creamy metallic like shade, I don't feel that it does pull that type of look. But I was honestly expecting a high shine foil metallic, so that threw me for a little bit of a surprise. That is my personal preference, but it's definitely not a quality issue within the palette. It's still a very good quality, and if you can see my eyelids, this is a great palette for an office look, an everyday office job, a conservative type look, I feel like you can pull this off really easily. And this shade is gorgeous here. This satiny shade, it's not very shimmery at all. The one thing I noticed once I blended everything out off camera, the thing I think I like most about this for a day-to-day palette for work is my eyes have this pretty pearlescent sheen to them, and I don't think it's going to pick up on camera. Even once blending the deepest shade out here, it's almost like it picked up a little bit of the metallic shade and this shimmery shade here. And my whole lid here, you have to really be up on it close. But for someone with a mature eye, especially if you've got crepey skin on the eyes and you're really not liking that, you will like that about this palette. It's going to keep it from looking dry. And it's going to just bring some life back into the skin around the eyes. It is so subtle, and it's an elegant type pearl finish. It's not like a shimmer, like a glittery shimmer. It's more like a pearl sheen. And that's where the quality really comes into this palette, because I would have purchased this palette had it been a drugstore palette. Just the color story in itself was a lot for me. And at first I thought when I was putting it on for you guys, oh, I don't know that this is really worth the luxury price of $25. But once I started blending and saw that little pearlescent look to it, I thought, okay, this is where it's worth the luxury price, and it's that small piece of refinement that makes all the difference. Well, if you have hooded eyes and you don't necessarily want a flat look because you may have some texture with that hooded eyes, this is going to help you. It's going to give a little pearl essence to it without being sparkly. It's hard to explain without you seeing it yourself. If you go into a Sephora and you decide to swatch it, I don't know if all Sephoras are letting you swatch. My Sephora is definitely letting me swatch, but even if you swatch this palette, really blend it out. Instead of just doing the stripe and getting a concentrated stripe, after you do that and look at the actual shades on your skin tone, blend it out, kind of blend it out and see how they mesh, and you'll see what I mean. It's just got such refinement to it, and I think that's where the true value comes in on this palette for creating a classy look. Now, if this $25 seems to be a lot for you, I would say that you could skip it, because the color story, there are still some phenomenal drugstore palettes that are out there that produce a great quality. What I'm seeing with the palette is something for someone that is a true makeup lover. I'm like up to a mirror this close in my face when I'm blending to be able to see without my glasses on. So that I'm seeing, I don't know that someone would even notice that out in the general public. It not being super metallic and just super wow in your face, I'm okay with that, being that she did name it the Biba palette along with the big Biba palette, which is to be a neutral toned down palette. So in that way, I'm okay with this look. I definitely have one more look in mind that I want to create with this palette. I think I want to do a separate video on it, and so that I make sure that I'm in this palette for more than one day before I really say if this is something you should or shouldn't buy. But I think I've given you some pretty good pros and cons as to who this palette is for and if it could be for you. But I hope this was helpful and that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to support the channel. I'll see you guys soon.